Welcome everyone to Straight Shoot, a wrestling podcast. Yes, do not adjust your screens. We are doing something a little different this week. We have a special guest as Santi is down in Colombia on vacation. Infamous Jade Lowe from TikTok, one of our favorite ICW and wrestling creators on the Wrestle Talk. Jade, welcome to Straight Shoot. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well, man. I've been watching you and Santi for a couple of months now. I enjoy y'all's videos. I just got into your podcast recently, too. So here to have a good time, buddy. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, dude. Let's hear a little bit about yourself. Obviously, this is a wrestling platform, so let's hear how you got into wrestling, how you got into the social media side of things, and just where your passion comes from.
Yeah, the passion comes from watching wrestling since I was, as long as I can remember. My dad got me into it. We watched Monday Nitro every Monday. After WCW shut down, I got out of it for a little bit, got back into WWF in the later part of the Ruthless Aggression era, and I've been watching it ever since. I've been into like e-fetting, and I've done local news reporting and stuff, just really anything to keep me fed into the wrestling business. And then just like a lot of other people, I got into TikTok because of the pandemic, just looking for a way to waste some time and kill some time sitting around the house when we couldn't go outside. And then I'm scrolling through TikTok and I start seeing guys like Narcolepsy Boy and Lou Nonsense and Axel and Mitri to God, and I'm like, this looks like fun. So just on a whim, I made a video, and I was like, what could possibly get wrestling nerds' opinions more than saying stuff that's going to piss them off, right? So I was like, what are some things that I wholeheartedly believe in that I know 80% of the population is not going to believe in? And so I just made kind of a highlight clip of that. I called it Wrestling Opinions That Might Trigger You. I wake up the next morning, and it's got 10,000 hits, and I'm like, holy shit. I wake up the next day and it's got 20,000 hits. I'm like, holy shit. So I make another one, and that one gets to 40,000 twice as fast. And the ball just started rolling down the hill, man. So basically overnight, I was at 5,000 followers. Within a couple of weeks, I was at 10,000, and then I've slowly climbed my way up to 41,000. I run a community that's open to any wrestling fan of any age, of any opinion. The only rule I have is don't be an ass. I know you and Santi probably know from watching my comment section, I like to use the word blocked because I like people to know when they've been an ass.
Yeah.
I don't just quietly block them. I want them to know before I do it. You're an idiot. Here you go. And I have such a good time. I actually did a podcast on my own for a little bit. I haven't done it in a while. So I've had an opportunity to do that. I got to interview Ryan Satin on a podcast, which was like the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. I went to the Royal Rumble in January, and a lot of people came up and said hi. So just being a member of Wrestling Talk is just in the short time I've done it over the last year, provided me with some of the coolest memories that I'll ever have. So I look forward to doing it for a long time yet. As long as TikTok doesn't ban my account. Please, Daddy TikTok,
hey.
don't ban my
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. And I guess the one thing you're most notorious for is always in the Pats kit. What's it? Well, talk to me about that. Diehard Pats fan or what?
I am a diehard Pats fan. This is not a work. It's a shoot. I've been a Patriots fan since '99. So pre-Brady, the first thing everyone says is, "Oh, you're only a Patriots fan because Brady got you all the Super Bowls." No, pre-Brady, I was a Patriots fan. I was 9 years old, and I grew up in Arkansas. If you're going to watch football, you just kind of have to pick your own team because Arkansas doesn't have a football team because Arkansas barely exists. I picked the Patriots mostly just because I like their colors, and then the rest is history. But the reason that I wear it all the time is because I have a keen eye for for marketing and for being able to broadcast myself. And one thing that I've realized with TikTok's algorithm is that TikTok likes when people comment on your stuff, right? So if I can get that extra 6 or 7 people per video that wouldn't have commented otherwise to just comment and say the Patriots suck.
Yeah.
Thanks for boosting my algorithm, Bubba. Appreciate
Hey
you.
man,
Uh,
I completely understand that because I find like any videos that I post myself, I prefer the comments to get as dirty and grimy as they can because I love really shutting them down.
yeah.
All right, man. So both avid wrestling fans. What I want to get into tonight, I think our first conversation while we were just shortly off the air there was, and we kind of had a bit of a reversal of roles. I kind of came in as the heel on this one and really shot on Monday Night Raw. And from my opinion, how the episode was not that good, and I think everyone in the WWE universe felt that this past weekend's episode was actually quite quality. Couple of nice returns, couple of good matches. Let's talk first over maybe not the biggest surprise of the night, but Becky Lynch's promo. What's your vibe on this defeated Becky Lynch?
So Becky Lynch was obviously a lot more interesting as a babyface back when she was the pursuer and not the pursued. Um, I think Becky has been quality since she's come back, but I honestly don't think she's been as good both in her promos and in the ring as she was when she was a babyface. I just think she's a natural babyface. So it'll be interesting, but she's done some nice things on the heel side. It'll be interesting to see now that she's kind of both, because she's kind of still the bad guy who, immediately put down the crowd in her promo, but then now she's also the pursuer again. She said it in her promo the first time in 3 years. She's been on Raw without a title, which is bananas. I think Becky Lynch is probably going to be better off being the pursuer. I just think her character is more interesting that way.
Yeah, and let's get into the repercussions of her promo, the return of Asuka. I think we saw this down the pipeline. I know you are a massive fan of Asuka and like her overall in-ring performance and that kind of thing. What was your overall vibe when she came in? How do you feel about this feud? And where do you see it running?
I saw something on Twitter that was really interesting that kind of ties the whole thing together in that Asuka was the last person that Becky was in the ring with before she left for her maternity leave, and now Becky is the first person Asuka's in the ring with upon Asuka's return. So it's just kind of this. WWE does a lot of things wrong, even for someone like me who loves WWE. They do a lot of things wrong. One of the things that they can absolutely do just beautifully when they want to is long-term storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they meant to do it or not, the fact that Becky Lynch was the first person that Asuka saw upon her return is just beautiful, beautiful storytelling to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because now if Becky wants to start pursuing back up the ladder towards Bianca Belair, who's the first person she has to get through? The person that she handed the title to 2 years ago. So, and listen, just on the Asuka side of things, I made my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time last year, and Asuka's up there. I got a lot of sideways glances on that. Asuka wasn't always up there. It was Asuka's performance in 2020 that secured her spot on my personal top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. Asuka carried the silent building era of WWE, and then even helped to carry the Thunderdome era going into the pandemic ending. So Asuka, and I'm so glad they didn't change her. They didn't change her name. They didn't change her character. I think that she's been gone long enough that they didn't need to, and that her coming back just the way that she was, still being that, using the smarmy language with Becky and then doing the reverse fists is just everything about it. I popped out of my seat when it happened. I'm so happy she's back, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next.
Yeah, I can see them having a nice little feud going into probably WrestleMania Backlash, and probably concluding it probably at SummerSlam. But can you really see either one of these women running a non-title feud for the next 6 months? I personally don't think so. I think they're both too big of names for this.
Yeah. And not only are they, if you look at it from the aspect of them being two huge names, but I mean, just take a look at WrestleMania and did they have one single women's match that wasn't a title match?
No, I don't. I don't recall one not being
They
a title
didn't.
match. So
Yeah, in fact, they had two singles women's titles matches, and then the only way they could get any more women on the card was to cram them into a 8-woman tag team match, and that's what they have to do every time at WrestleMania. They either cram them into an 8-woman tag team match or a battle royal.
yeah,
WWE's major weakness with the women's division, I believe overall that WWE's women's division has always been better since AEW, since their inception, both from a talent perspective and from a booking perspective. But WWE's one big weakness is they cannot, to save their own asses, book a women's feud that doesn't involve a title. Every time they try and book a women's feud that doesn't involve a title, it comes off as very catty. See Aaliyah versus Natalia last year. It's very annoying the way the women come off because WWE's Vince McMahon's version or vision of women fighting is cat scratching, meowing, taking off the heels, and
yeah,
he just has no deep thought for what women would actually be fighting over unless it's a big piece of gold. And I don't see that changing. So I'm nervous for how this feud is going to go.
yeah.
I think it's better off being short term than long term.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get a little bit of heel heat on the opinion of Vince's persona when it comes to the women's division. But you know what? I don't disagree with some of the past feuds that he's had. But like, okay, let's move into maybe a more entertaining and fun celebration. How we kicked off Raw. Randy Orton's 20th anniversary. First off, what a career, man. Like, would you have thought when that babyface walked out on SmackDown in those short trunks, pretty boy, blonde highlights I think he had, the typical cast iron jaw, chiseled. Did you really think we were gonna get what we have now in, the Viper, the Apex Predator, the Legend Killer, the accolades? Obviously, Evolution really kind of molded that. But did you really think 20 years ago that you were gonna be sitting here and being like, "What a career this kid's had"?
No, back then, if you would have asked me, I would have said Batista is going to be the one to have the 20-year career, and he's going to be a 13-time champion, and Triple H is probably going to wrestle until he's as old as Ric Flair. Randy Orton and kind of John Cena in that same cloth. Back then, I could see that WWE were high on them, but I certainly did not think we'd be sitting here in the year 2022 with Randy Orton still wrestling.
Yeah.
And still, and the thing is, not only is he still wrestling, but you heard him say it in the ring, being an RK Bro is the most fun he's ever had wrestling. And you know what? Damn it, I believe it. Mm-hmm. I absolutely 100% believe that Randy Orton is having more fun right now than he ever has in his entire career. You can see it in the way he interacts with Riddle. You can see in his energy with the crowd. Say what you want about Orton as a heel, and he's better off being a heel. That's fine if you want to have that opinion. Every time Randy Orton has been a babyface, excluding that first run, he has been really over. Mm-hmm. See, 2009, see 2017, see now.
Yeah.
So Randy Orton can get over as a babyface, and I was starting to doubt in 2020 how much time Orton had left, but seeing the energy that he's gotten now, I could see him going another 7 years, and it's incredible that he stuck around this long.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Like, I wouldn't have said, but then again, I wouldn't have said John Cena was going to have the run he had too. So, we're not going to dive into my opinions on John Cena because I think we'd be here for 3 hours with you trying to hit back at me. But the one thing I'm gonna say about this segment is I was actually quite disappointed that they kicked it off the way they did. I did like the Kevin Owens coming from the crowd.
He's a
Very,
national treasure.
yeah, exactly. Very much like Moxley in AEW. He doesn't like using the ramp, and I would love to see more of this from Kevin Owens coming through the crowd and just being that disgruntled employee and doing whatever he wants. But the what I was disappointed was they made it a little bit too nostalgic with the Cody Rhodes thing, and it almost took away from what Randy was being given. It
Yeah.
was more of let's go back to legacy and almost pass the torch. Yes, this is Randy's 20th anniversary, but we're still going to put Cody over. That is one thing about this segment that really annoyed me.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. I didn't really think about that at the time. The thing about Cody is that, you think back to put yourself back in high school, and you would have this new car, right? That all of your friends wanted, and then every opportunity that you get, you pass by the front of the school with your car just to show them, hey, look at this, I've got this car, and you don't. WWE, I think, can't help themselves with Cody Rhodes. He's already, if you go to Hulu and pull up Raw, you're going to see Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
If you watch an ad during SmackDown for Raw, the last face you see is Cody Rhodes. He's the face of Backlash. The match they're putting more hype behind than any other match is Cody versus Seth. And I think WWE is probably every opportunity they have to put Cody in a high-profile spot, they're going to do it because they want AEW fans to see, hey, look who we got. And look how good we're treating him, and look how happy he is, and look how good he is. They'll never say that out loud, but I think secretly that's probably an aspect of it. So
Yeah, and moving into, like, speaking of your national treasure of our Canadian boy Kevin Owens, this man can carry any storyline.
anything.
He can carry a feud with Steve Austin, and Steve Austin only has to be on the screen for 25 minutes after 7 weeks of build. Now,
Yep.
let's talk about probably the most interesting story in WWE at this moment in time. It is not Elias. It is Ezekiel, Elias's younger brother.
I knew you were going to say that.
Um,
Here's the thing. I don't think anybody but Kevin Owens could have gotten Ezekiel over. I really don't. And at first, part of me was like, how in the hell do you go from main event night one with Stone Cold Steve Austin to Ezekiel, right? But I think that Vince probably recognizes what he's got in Kevin. And he knows that Kevin Steen Owens is going to, no matter what you put him in, he is going to put every ounce of his fucking heart and soul into it.
yeah.
And it's just so funny. The second that I heard, no, 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 I couldn't help it. And I'm laughing right now. And I think Kevin Owens single-handedly, you look at that main event match that at the end of Raw, you got the Usos and Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes and Ezekiel. And Ezekiel's just hanging out there for some reason, but he's there, and he's there because this feud with Owens is working against everything that I ever thought possible.
Yeah.
It's working because Kevin Owens is making it work.
Yeah, and he's honestly, I didn't think Ezekiel could be this over, but then again, the talent that Elias was, he was so over, or he was so despised that he can even carry a character, and I think it's very underappreciated what he has the ability to do as well. He carried that drifter persona for so many years and really had both ends of the spectrum covered. So I think we're in for an absolute treat with this feud. And I'm really looking forward to it. I just think Ezekiel might need to change his gear just a
Yeah, it's
little
weird.
bit. Yeah, it's
I
weird.
agree. It's weird.
All
It's
right.
like flesh colored paint. It's weird.
Oh yeah, it's very weird. I think we saw. I can't remember. I think it was Trish came out when she came back for that little short stint, and she came out in like a flesh tan colored bodysuit, and I was like, Vince allowed that? All right.
I don't think that's PG.
Yeah. All right, let's move into probably my biggest disappointment of the night, but it's always my biggest disappointment of the night. Bianca Belair and Sonya Deville's Raw Women's Championship match. Sonya Deville running as, I would say, a new version of Stephanie McMahon. And we'll get into Bianca, and you guys, you can shoot on me all you want about my not being over on Bianca. But here's the thing. A lot of people are not over on the job that Sonya's doing. And Sonya's job right now is giving me very much um, early to late, or sorry, late 90s, early 2000 Stephanie McMahon Helmsley coming into her power, coming into her like almost final form, we'll say, and really utilizing this place of management and power position to her advantage. And we got to see this in this match. Getting tossed out, getting counted out, then the disqualification, no DQ, and then with the Carmella and Queen Zelina coming out and kind of helping. Do you get that vibe as well that like Sonya is kind of getting this almost, I'm not saying Stephanie McMahon 2.0, but really building her character around that Stephanie vibe?
So it's funny that you say that because she does remind me of McMahon, but she reminds me of Shane McMahon. More recently, the best in the world, 2019 into 2020 Shane McMahon. And I think that's the reason that it bothers me so much what she's doing. And it all goes back, by the way, to the fact that, Sonya is not Shane or Stephanie. Sonya can wrestle, and she can wrestle really well.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they can't make up her mind, or they can't make up their minds on whether or not they want her to be an in-ring person or a backstage personality. And I hate Shane McMahon. I don't know if you've ever seen my videos on Shane McMahon. I've got so many videos on Shane McMahon, I made a playlist out of them. I hate Shane McMahon. And not, oh, you dastardly heel, you go away, get off my screen. And her tactics as far as bringing in the two people and because Shane always had cronies when he was wrestling Roman Reigns and The Miz. He always had cronies. Restarting matches in his favor. Punching people and saying, you can't punch me, I'm authority. And to your credit, Stephanie did all of that stuff way back when, but Shane is a more recent memory and that wound is still fresh. Mm-hmm. So she definitely is. And, it makes sense because who do you think is teaching her how to be a GM character?
Yeah.
Vince McMahon is teaching her how to be a GM character. The same person who probably taught Shane and Stephanie how to be a GM. So what she's doing and how she's acting and her mannerisms, it's no surprise to me that they are the way that they are. I've been sick of Sonya being on my TV since the Naomi feud, which seemed like it went on for 4 years. So I haven't been able to enjoy this Sonya Bianca because I either need some time away from the Sonya Deville character, or she just needs to quit being the backstage character and just be a wrestler.
And
I'd be happy.
I think that's where they're going to build this to, with her now finally abusing her power. I think we're going to see that move into her finally transitioning. She did take her time off because of everything happened in her personal life, and I think this was a nice, easy transition back in for her. To the match itself, and I want to quickly start moving through Raw a little quicker because I want to get to our topic of the show. How did you feel about this match? Like, are they making Bianca almost too powerful in her run right now to overcome three women, a steel chair, a couple of steel chairs, some pretty solid bumps that would take out your average person. What's your opinion here? Like, because I was like, okay, they could have done less, and sometimes less is more.
Yeah. I think it could have gone one stipulation less. I think it went on a little bit too long.
Yeah.
Even as a Bianca Belair fan, it went on a little bit too long. I think you didn't need the count out part. You didn't need the count out part. You could have just had Sonya skip straight to, I'm going to hit you with a chair, and then I'm going to try and end the match that way, and then maybe bring out either Carmella or Queen Zelina, especially considering the fact that they just broke up 3 weeks ago. And then when they did, and when they did that promo backstage with Sonya, they couldn't seem to make up their mind. Carmella just haphazardly threw in, oh, by the way, it was her fault too. But no, you're standing here talking about having a tag team title opportunity. You're friends again after you just beat the hell out of each other. So don't even get me started on that.
All right.
But I would agree that match could have gone one segment less. But I also think that we have to be careful as wrestling fans in putting ourselves in a situation where we don't know what we want, because we always say that you have to make a champion look strong, or else when it's taken from them, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But then when someone like Roman Reigns or Bianca Belair gets treated strong and has a nice long title reign, then we start saying, oh, when are they ever going to lose? Well, why are they shoving them down our throats? So I think I think right now it feels fine the way that they're treating her.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens going forward. But this match in particular, it could have been one less.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move into. We finally got a name for Edge's new faction with Damian Priest. What are we calling it? The Judgment Day or Judgment Day? The one thing I want to get into, okay, yes, a lot of people are really over on this faction where there's conversations about who else is going to join, hints at Rhea Ripley. I'll get into Ciampa in a minute, and we're calling him Ciampa now. Tommaso's been dropped, which, let's not get into that. We'll get into that into the topic of the show. But fucking poor Finn Balor, man.
Yeah.
Like, what is WWE doing with him? Like, is this like the proverbial death by small cuts? Like, everything is always against Finn Balor, and I'm just so confused by it.
Right. Well, they had no choice but to bring him back up to the main roster, right? Because NXT 2.0, the face they're trying to put on that, Finn Balor didn't fit in 2.0. He wasn't going to belong there. So they had to bring him back up. Unfortunately, I knew he was doomed the very first night that he came back, and during his entrance, he immediately did this, because now he's back to crowd pop Finn Balor. And that's where he was doomed in the first place. And so I was excited when he had the feud with Roman, even though I knew he wasn't going to win. I was excited when he became the United States champion, even though some part of me knew it was just a transitional reign, probably for theory, even before it happened. Look, Finn Balor kind of falls in the same category for me as Kevin Owens, where I'm never going to be fully satisfied with how they're booked unless they're world champions. But at the same token, if they're happy doing what they're doing, more power to them.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens has openly re-signed his contract. If Finn Balor wants to re-sign because this is what he's happy doing, more power to him. But it certainly feels like WWE sort of recognizes what Finn brings to the table, but then only uses it just enough to put other people over, and it's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I'm getting the very big Cesaro vibe with what they're doing with Finn Balor right now. And speaking of Cesaro, how would you feel about Finn going back to his old persona and to Prince Devitt and joining AEW?
I mean, he might as well. Everyone else is joining AEW.
But do you think he would be successful?
I think... I thought, let me answer it like this. I thought that Andrade was going to be successful in AEW, and I thought that Keith Lee was going to be successful in AEW, and I thought that Aleister Black was going to be successful in AEW. Where the fuck are they?
Yeah.
So maybe that's a topic for a different day, but I do think that going to AEW is the guaranteed success it used to be, because AEW is quickly becoming oversaturated with too many guys that they don't know what to do with.
And we've seen this before back in our 90s days with oversaturation and big
Yep.
contracts and look how
Yep.
well WCW did. All right, moving on to the final segment I want to talk about. Miz and oh dear me, who was this segment with? It was I know who we had
Theory
return.
original.
Yeah, so Miz and Theory kind of very I got very John Cena, Kurt Angle vibes at the start of this. Yeah, I don't know how you felt about it. And then we hear this music we've never heard before, and the big oh my god moment. Mustafa Ali's back. Jade, please, how do you feel about this? Because I am gonna shoot on this the second you're done.
I can't really explain how I feel about Mustafa Ali other than putting it into two very quick parts. Number one, I'm just happy to see him on a TV screen again. I'm happy that WWE are at least going to use him if they are not going to lose him. I hate that WWE releases guys in the 20s and 30s, and then the one guy that asked for his release, they're suddenly like, we could, but we're just gonna hang on to you for a while. So if they're going to keep him, I'm happy they're at least going to use him. That being said, The Miz, I think, falls into the same category as Kevin Owens. The Miz can put anybody over,
Hmm.
make anybody look good. So I was glad if they were going to bring Mustafa back for a match, then it was against The Miz. My last point, I have zero faith this is going to go anywhere of any severeness or whatever. Maybe he'll have a backlash match. In 5 weeks, he's going to be chasing the 24/7 title with the rest of the goobers. I have no faith that, and that's not Mustafa's fault, by the way, but I have no faith it's anything other than that.
No, and I think a lot of it comes down to booking, but I'm on completely the other side of the spectrum. I did love this segment, and I really did love the shots that were thrown back at Mustafa Ali because coming from someone who works in corporate business, and everyday, not I won't say higher echelon business, that kind of thing, but there's structure in business and you don't air your dirty laundry publicly. If you want to do business properly, you make a phone call. You say, I'd like to request a meeting. And maybe Mustafa Ali did this, but the way he went into Twitter and said, I want my release and all this BS, for me, I am annoyed that Mustafa Ali is actually back on television.
Okay.
I would have preferred to see him if they want to bring him back, put him back with the Goobers because really, like, you really don't deserve the TV time unless you severely kissed some ass and apologized and first ping of me saying acknowledged on today's episode, but you acknowledged that you were wrong. And maybe he did do that, but I was really annoyed, and I am so glad Austin Theory and The Miz got the opportunity to really shoot on him in these promos because I genuinely believe he deserved it.
Yeah, and maybe that was the agreement they came to, right? Is that we'll put you back on TV, but we're going to toast your ass for it. And maybe he said, fair enough. We don't know what happened backstage, but again, regardless of how you feel about that, I have zero confidence that anything happens from this.
But we did have a final little segment with that, and Mustafa walking back, and Ciampa, that we are now supposed to call Ciampa, just like we were supposed to call, what's his name, Butch. It's Ciampa, which okay, whatever. But Ciampa versus Mustafa Ali. Take away my feelings on him being back on screen. I see some good matches here.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I see quality. Ciampa is world class. Mustafa is a great athlete. I think we've got a good couple of weeks of maybe a second on the card WWE Backlash, WrestleMania Backlash match here. I'm excited. We could see a barn burner here.
Oh yeah, I think this is the kind of pairing that could easily go for like a best of seven, kind of like Murphy and Black or Cesaro and Sheamus did. I love when wrestlers do that, and when you let Ali go, he wrestles kind of the same NXT style that Ciampa likes to wrestle. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, throw them in a ring and just let them have at each other, and it's going to be entertaining as hell.
Yeah. All right. So our coverage of Raw lasted a little longer than I wanted it to, but let's get into the real topic of the show. I want to talk about your opinion on the current state of the business. We are, I would say, a little bit more knowledgeable wrestling fans. We have the history and the following of everything that we've seen. We have the upper echelon that is WWE. We have the new kid on the block, and I'm still going to call it the new kid on the block of AEW, where there's obviously that comparison of what is better. Is AEW performing better than WWE? Where I'm going with this question is, are we starting to see finally that proverbial shift where all the stars are going to align and we can finally get that quote, weekly ratings war? Or are we a very long time from this? Because I have my opinion on it, but are we a very long time from this, or are we also talking about two different products completely?
So in my opinion, we are talking about. I mean, so the point of wrestling and the point of why they do what they do is to entertain, to bring eyes to what they do. And my opinion on WWE and AEW is and has always been the eyes that they're each bringing to the different products completely different.
Yes,
completely. The people that watch AEW are going to watch AEW regardless if you got Omega versus Jericho or a bag of trash versus a bag of garbage. They're going to watch AEW because it's not WWE. Mm-hmm. And because Tony Khan and Kenny Omega and the Bucks and Cody Rhodes for a long time told you don't need to watch AEW, you don't need to watch WWE, you need to watch AEW. So that demographic is always going to watch no matter what, just to try and stick it to WWE. And then combined with that, you have the people that don't really care about the war between WWE and AEW, but they're seeing all their favorite indie guys who previously no one had any idea who they were, MJF and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy and Sammy Guevara and all these guys, and now they're getting their chance in the limelight and they want to follow along with that. Meanwhile, WWE's demographic hasn't changed for the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. The people that watch WWE are going to watch WWE regardless of what AEW is doing. Now, you're going to have people like me who watch both.
Yep. And
then you're going to have people who watch AEW and see the Mimosa match or whatever, or watch the arcade match or whatever, and or watch, Hook and Danhausen and say, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
This isn't wrestling. This is for children. I'm going to go back to WWE. If you go into WWE wanting to hate it, you are going to hate it. And if you go into AEW wanting to hate it, you are going to hate it.
Now, Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll finish right here. I don't think we are anywhere close to AEW and WWE being a head-to-head comparison or a war. I think they tried it with NXT versus AEW, and I think they realized what I realized, and that is it doesn't matter if we're warring against each other. The people who are watching this are going to watch this, the people who are watching that are going to watch that, and the war was a little bit feudal. Mm-hmm. I think it'll only really be a war when Dynamite starts going head-to-head with Raw or SmackDown, and I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of the points that you just made, with especially the fan base being very different. Like, there's obviously your wrestling fans, and I'm just going to use wrestling as a term, because we also have sports entertainment and we have professional wrestling. What people grow up and everyone sees on social media, they just see the squared circle and 2 or 4 guys in a ring doing a performance. And those, for me, that is that wrestling echelon of fans. You also then you have your WWE people who have grown up and watched the product maybe from the 2000s on, and then you have your AEW fans, which I find are more critical of the standard of the performance in ring and not so much the storyline. And I think that's what Tony Khan really builds his business around. I also find that a lot of those wrestling fans that are on the AEW spectrum of things are either ex-Attitude Era, bringing their new children, their younger children up in what they are calling professional wrestling before Vince swapped it to entertainment, and they're trying to grasp at the past and hoping that somebody on that AEW roster can really get that breakout point like The Rock, or Stone Cold, or The Undertaker back in those days. And I think that's where you have your three platforms of wrestling fans. In no way, shape, or form is AEW and WWE going to ever have that head-to-head like WWE and or WWF and WCW had, because I think it's two different, very different products. There's no real storyline. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where is there a true storyline in AEW right now? I think the closest thing we have is Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti with Scorpio Sky and Dan Lambert. I think that is the closest thing to a long-term storyline, not a feud storyline that we have going. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I wasn't even thinking of that one, honestly. I was thinking of Eddie and Chris, but that's just because those guys are two veterans who know how to work the mic. I don't even consider Sammy and Scorpio a long-term thing, to be completely honest.
Yep.
But I've said this since the beginning. You and I are in complete agreement. WWE is, for better or worse, the storyline company. Sometimes the stories are good and sometimes they suck, but they are the storyline company. AEW could just throw out Tanahashi versus Omega one week with no story, and they're going to sell out because that's what their fans are wanting. So
now
you and I on that.
Now, yeah, and I think that's hands down the best point of it. Now, has Tony Khan struck gold with this upcoming proverbial Forbidden Door pay-per-view where New Japan's going to be coming over and we're going to get these one-time open door matches from the guys from New Japan versus our beloved AEW guys? Has he done this right?
I think I don't know how else he could have done it, honestly. I think that, again, whether or not he's going to admit it from a business standpoint, there's always that little sort of part of me that believes that every time they do something like this, they are really only doing it because WWE won't, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And in fact, I think it's good business. If you've got something that the people are asking for and WWE isn't going to do it, then why wouldn't you do it? Mm-hmm. And now even WWE fans, even guys like me, quite honestly, who, I'm going to be honest, outside of Ibushi, Tanahashi, and a couple other guys, I don't know any of these guys. From every time a New Japan guy debuts on AEW and Excalibur has this big, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
But even somebody like me who doesn't really know these names is now looking over like, you know, I got to watch that because WWE is never going to do this, so I have to watch it. So from a business standpoint, I don't really see how you could have done it any different than what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think there's some really good opportunity with some obviously 5+ star matches with this pay-per-view. First two names that are coming, or first 3 names that are coming to mind. I don't think AEW has really let Jay White go since he's come in. Switchblade Jay White is, in my mind, probably currently one of the top 10, maybe 15 performers in the world. His ability in ring is incredible. So seeing a decent feud build up and then match at Forbidden Door with Jay White, I'm excited. Okada. When was the last time we saw Okada in a match on North American soil? Minus a New Japan match.
Can't think of one. Honestly, that's just me, but I can't think of one.
Neither can I. And then finally, and I do believe he is still there, is Will Ospreay still over in New Japan?
I believe that he's still wrestling matches for him, at least, yeah.
Will Ospreay in a North American ring, I remember a promo. It was an interview in the UK, and Paul Heyman was there. And I remember him saying to Will Ospreay, "You are the future of this business." And I'm sitting here now, and he has literally his pick of the litter, virtually, of some of the best performers. Like, right now, I want to see a triple threat between Scorpio Sky, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay.
Exactly. I was just thinking put him in a ladder match with Sammy Guevara for the TNT title.
Take my
But yeah,
fucking
throw
money. Take my
yeah.
fucking money right now. Okada against Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. Okada I really hope they don't build this to be Okada versus Punk. Because Punk doesn't need
I
it.
might have bad news for you. Because I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. That's the only match that first came to mind is Okada versus Punk.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't build it that way because Punk doesn't need it and
No.
Okada's still way better.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think we're gonna see a faction feud with Jay White and the Elite. What do you feel on that?
Yeah, the Bullet Club versus the Elite. I think honestly that obviously it would be a barn burner,
Yeah,
if that's a term that you still use. But I also think it might be a good way to further along because again, we were also talking before the show that Red Dragon, and the Elite were teaming together. I thought they were feuding. Apparently, there's this will they, won't they thing going on with them, and to maybe do this thing where the Elite accidentally maybe hits Red Dragon with a chair and gets him eliminated or something. It could also further that story as well, and give a clean way for the Bullet Club to go over. So yeah, this whole thing just has, like you said, green money printed all over it.
yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's in Chicago, right? It's in Chicago, right?
Yeah, everything they do is in Chicago.
Yeah, so the fans are going to be. I think we're going to see the most excited fans that we're going to see since Punk returned. Uh,
Yeah.
so with that being said, so Tony Khan is hitting very good points on doing stuff that is kind of changing the AEW side of the business. Obviously, opening the Forbidden Door, utilizing his relationships in Ring of Honor, New Japan, potentially seeing some work along the lines with some Impact people. What does WWE need to do to really kind of keep up, or do you? We already know that we don't think WWE is really concerned about AEW, but I think the fans are concerned that WWE is not concerned. Does that make sense?
No, I completely agree with that, and I have that feeling too. But when you see a move like Cody Rhodes, I think regardless of what you feel about Cody Rhodes and his in-ring ability or his promos or whatever, the fact that he fucking cries all the time, that's one of the things that bothers me.
Drives me insane.
Cody Rhodes is a big get.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes is a monstrous win for WWE. And I think that, just like I said earlier, every time they use Cody on TV, they're just rubbing it in Tony Khan's face, I think. I think that we are very soon, very soon, going to start seeing the floodgates. You know, we've seen all these guys going from WWE to AEW. I think that by the end of 2022, if AEW's booking, the way of booking doesn't change, I think we may start seeing that floodgate go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may start seeing guys who maybe haven't, like you're never going to see, at least I don't think, you're never going to see guys like Keith Lee or whatever go back to WWE, but maybe guys who started in AEW and maybe aren't getting what they thought they wanted out of AEW, just like Cody Rhodes wasn't, start ending their contracts and coming back over to WWE. And I think that's when everything starts getting really interesting, I think, is when we start seeing the talent trade go both ways. And so I think maybe that's when WWE starts acknowledging AEW a little bit more. The more people that come over from AEW to WWE, the more they're going to acknowledge, the more they're going to have to acknowledge, really, that AEW is a thing. So.
Yeah, I do agree with your point that we are going to see a bit of the proverbial floodgates open a little bit. I don't think it's as early as you're saying. I say we have another about year to 18 months before that really happens. But like, we're never going to see the Bucks. We're never going to see Kenny Omega. We could potentially see the likes of Orange Cassidy. because his booking is atrocious right now. You can see the likes of my
Brian
dream.
Cage.
Brian Cade. I would love to see. I personal dream Sammy Guevara over on WWE television. I just think the matches, but again, the relationship with Ty Conti, I do believe that hinders that because she left under horrible terms with I think it was NXT where she was at the time because she wasn't
Yeah.
getting booked well. But yeah, like it's a very interesting dynamic where we are with AEW because Tony Khan's payroll, he must be printing money out of one of
It's
these
like,
arenas because I don't understand
like he
even.
owns the Yankees. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like granted, he does own a professional football side. He owns an NFL
Right.
side. He's probably got businesses left, right, and center. But at the end of the day, man, like your top five guys are making 5 million plus a year, and I don't understand. And you're barely using some of your top five guys. Like
Yeah.
that's where my biggest concern is with this. Um, but I think my final question is, um, actually, I've got final two questions. Is the first one is, if you could pick three guys from WWE currently and three guys from AEW currently, and you could trade them, and they get successful both on both shows, what's the trade you're making?
So the three that I'm taking from AEW, I was going to say earlier, I don't think you should shut the door on Kenny Omega going to WWE. For a guy who has succeeded in everything else he's done in wrestling throughout the entire world, but the one thing that the greatest wrestler in the world hasn't done is wrestle at WrestleMania. I think that door is always open. So I would bring Kenny to WWE. I know a lot of guys think that MJF's style wouldn't work in WWE, but I honestly think that MJF could help shape and change that style going forward. Like you're not going to be using, the word it's hard Ray or calling people shitheads or whatever, but he could still get over. And then Sammy Guevara, like you said, I just think Sammy Guevara has WWE written all over him.
Yeah.
His look, his style, his ability. So I would take those three. I think they would succeed heavily in WWE. And then guys that are in WWE that I think could help AEW succeed that aren't doing too much right now in WWE. Mustafa Ali, I think, is someone who could easily fill that Sammy Guevara role that he's in right now. So I would throw Ali in there. He's probably. I think that a guy like Bobby Lashley would do really well in AEW.
Okay.
I just could see him going over and just letting all of the little guys over there bounce off of him in his debut promo and just slinging them all around the ring. I think that Bobby Lashley would get over huge as a big monster in AEW. And then from the women's side, because I think AEW's women's division, aside from Britt Baker, and even Britt Baker is starting to suffer from the AEW women's booking lately.
Yeah.
I think they are severely lacking personality, and WWE is flush with it. So I think someone that would do very well in AEW would be Bayley. So
Wow.
Bayley, Lashley, and Ali for Guevara, MJF, and Omega. And again, I know that may not seem like a fair trade as far as like what they've succeeded in, but just taking three people who I think would help the other brand and then three more people who I think would help the opposite brand, I think that's probably the best trade I can come up with off the top of my head.
No, and honestly, there's some big names in there, and I can see the story behind them all, which is great. And I think my final question for you tonight, my dude, is what do you see happening with Roman Reigns? I was talking before you answer this. I was talking to another TikToker and somebody else we both know very well about this the other day. And the comment that was made was, I think this is the first time in our generation that we have seen a storyline and something this dominant where we can't book it. Like, you could always see, Brett, Austin, Rock. There was always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Even with what they're doing with Cody, you really can't believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is that pretty blonde hair, the American Nightmare. What is your opinion? What happens with Roman in the next 12 months?
So I see a lot of people online that are defaulting to, well, whoever wins the Money in the Bank, right? Whoever wins the Money in the Bank has to be the one to end the reign. But have you seen the way WWE have booked the Money in the Bank for the past 4 years?
Yep.
They don't give a shit about the Money in the Bank contract. It's just a thing now.
Yep.
It's not special. It's just a thing. It's an event they can sell tickets to. So I don't think that somebody winning Money in the Bank is a guarantee. They could hold the thing for 12 months and cash it in after Roman loses. They could cash it on Roman, and Roman could beat him easily. I could see that happening. I think Cody is probably always that constant now that is there and waiting. The only other person, in my opinion, who has been booked into enough credibility that if you put him in a feud with Roman, I would be nervous going into the match, as in I don't know who's going to win this, would be Drew McIntyre. That's the only active wrestler that they could throw into a match with Roman, and I could see Drew might win this. Outside of that, you got The Rock, right? The Rock could always come in at any point and say, you're not the head of the table, I'm the head of the table, and now I'm going to take that title from you.
Yeah.
So I think those are probably the top three, would be Cody, The Rock, and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, so I think you're completely correct in the three people that you've just mentioned, and fourth, including The Rock. I think Cody's going to be that constant, proverbial thorn in the ass, and they're going to push him. I just hope he doesn't try to execute his title run clause that he has too early, because that would kind of ruin the dominance that is Roman Reigns and what they've built. Honestly, Drew McIntyre, I've said for Drew McIntyre, and this is a big one. Drew McIntyre carried the lockdown era, is what I call it. He deserves his WrestleMania moment in front of a crowd. He doesn't deserve a match against Madcap Moss. He deserves his main event in front of 70, 80,000 people. So I really hope he gets it. I really do, because I do believe all the work he did was that important. Who was the other one you mentioned before The Rock?
It was either The Rock, Cody, Drew, or whoever the Money in the Bank winner is.
Yeah, the Money in the Bank winner. The Money in the Bank winner, for me, has been a joke as well. Like, you put it on the likes of, like, Baron Corbin, or you put it on the likes of, who had it for the women for the short time. It was like
everyone for the women for the past 3 years has cashed it in either same night or same week. So the women's, there's no history to that.
Yeah, there's no history to it. And finally, with The Rock, if The Rock is your WrestleMania Roman opponent, Roman does not have the title going into WrestleMania. That is my opinion, because that match is not a title match. That is a legacy match. And with all legacy matches, I think WrestleMania, 25, the end of an era match,
Mm-hmm.
that was a legacy match. Nobody needed a title for that, because those two, plus Shawn, or was it Shawn? Yeah, it was Shawn, like, carried that. And you don't need a title. You just need competitors. So if it's The Rock at Mania, Roman's not going to have the title at Mania. So you can't have your cake and your dinner and have everything all jumbled into one. You need to have one stock standard. So I agree with you. For me, those would have been the three that I would have picked. But yeah.
And for me, if you are going to do The Rock and Roman, and I'll make this very quick, but I think the perfect booking, and I don't know if you either do this soon and then The Rock goes away for a while, or Roman has to hold the title all the way up until next Royal Rumble in order for this to work, one of the two. But I think you put Roman in a long feud with someone like a Cody Rhodes or like a Drew McIntyre, and he defends the title twice against this person. Both times, Roman either uses a weapon or those damn Usos get involved or Paul Heyman gets involved. You get to the end and it's like a steel cage or a Hell in a Cell in the rubber match. And Drew McIntyre or Cody Rhodes has said, give me this title match, and if I lose, I'll never challenge you again or whatever. And those damn Usos are cutting a hole in the cage or they're about to climb in. And then suddenly, if you smell, and then The Rock has had enough. The Rock comes out and stops the Usos. He distracts Roman long enough. He gets hit with 3 crossroads or 3 Claymore kicks. 1, 2, 3, new champion. And then Roman's got his path toward The Rock. The title can go elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it needs to be in order for The Rock to work, I think.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think Santi and I had a conversation that it has to be the Rumble next year or it's not happening. All right, Jade, listen, man, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you as and I will speak for Santi, as our first official guest on the Straight Shoot Wrestling podcast. Honestly, we got some great insight on Raw. We got some great insight on where the business is at, and I think where we're going with it. Jade, at the end of all our episodes, we give myself and Santi time to like plug ourselves. So do me a favor, take it away, plug yourself, and let me know where. Let everybody know where we can find you.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm real easy to find if you can spell it, but it's Infamous Opinionist on TikTok, or you can probably just search Jade Lowe and you're going to find me too. And I'm easy to find because all my socials are in my link tree in my TikTok bio. So if you can find me on TikTok, you can find me everywhere. If you can't, I'm Infamous Jade08 everywhere else besides TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. I have a Facebook page you can follow. I have a YouTube channel. It's just The Infamous Opinionist. So follow me everywhere you want daily wrestling content. A lot of conversations just like this one. So, and Steve, by the way, again, I had a blast coming on here, man. Always have a good time talking with someone who's passionate about wrestling. I can always tell those who are and those who aren't, and you and Santi definitely are, man. So thanks for having me on, man. I had a great time.
No problem, dude, and I hope we get to do this again, and hopefully Santi can join us. I know he's taking his vacation. Guys, for myself and the Straight Shoot podcast, you can find us on TikTok at Straight Shoot. You can find us on YouTube at Straight Shoot, a wrestling podcast. Guys, we are now live on Spotify, and we should be live on all other access podcasts in the next week or so. So don't forget to go join us over there. All our links are in our link tree in the TikTok bio. Don't worry, Jade. I will have your link in the under here for everyone to access your stuff. And for myself, I am Mr. Tesh on TikTok and over on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Mr. Tesh. Again, all links are in the bio. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. And Jade, once again, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to speaking with you again, all right?
Anytime, Steve. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers, guys. Take care.